Come on, praise the Lord, everybody. Come on, let's all stand wherever you are this evening. Those in the sanctuary, those online with us. Look, turn to your right, turn to your left, and say, you're in the right place tonight. And go back and tell them, say, you're in the right place tonight because you're sitting next to me. Gracious God, our Father, we thank you tonight for who you are, for the power you give to us, God, the space you allow us to be in your powerful presence. And so, God, tonight we honor you for bringing us together to just have conversation, dialogue, on things that matter to your people. And if they matter to your people, God, we know they matter to you. So give us revelation, give us understanding, give us, God, open minds that we can receive from you. And it's in the name of Jesus Christ we pray, and together we all say, amen. Come on, just celebrate the fact that you're alive, you're in this place. And even as you're making your way to your seat, just encourage somebody. As you're making your way to your seat, just find a couple of persons just to encourage tonight. Let them know you're glad to see them. You're glad to be in this house with them. And so tonight we come to have conversation on the things that matter to every person in here. You're here because there's some things burning on your heart, some things that matter to you, that you want some direction on, some answers. And we have the right persons in the house. And let me just help. The governor is on his way. He had to stop the meeting, but say, calm down. He'll be here. He'll be here. He'll be here. He'll be here. But tonight we just want to share information with you, answer questions, and make sure that you move toward the November 5th election, you are as informed as you can possibly be. So when you go to cast your votes, you're making votes based upon information that matters to you and what's going to make your life a bit stronger and a bit more stable. Amen? So tonight, to guide us, to lead us tonight, y'all know who's going to lead us tonight, right? Sister April Ryan, our member, our friend. She is the longest serving black woman in the press corps at the White House. Come on, celebrate her, salute her. I'm gonna get up, come on, celebrate her tonight.
Thank you. Good evening. Good evening, morning. So I'm gonna say it one more time. Good evening. That's what I'm talking about, the energy. It might be raining, the Orioles are tied, but we're good. Welcome to the Star. Welcome to Morning Star Baptist Church. It is an honor to be here. It's good to be anywhere other than the White House these days, you know? Whew. But we are here because of what's at stake. We are here. Let me say it again. Let me reiterate. We are here because of what's at stake. And throughout the evening, I want all of you to think about what's at stake for you personally. That's what's on the ballot, your personal issues. Politics is personal. And you can't get any more personal than the number one issue out there, the economy. You can't get any more personal than issues of health care. You can't get any more personal than issues of race, policing, freedoms, our rights. And I just want to say thank you to the pastor and the first lady. I am the bishop and the first lady. I am a member of this magnificent church. Bishop Debnam said during the DNC, he texted me, he said, look, I think we need to do this. He said, anything you want. I said, I'm there. And I want to thank Lady Carla Debnam for being so gracious. Yes. The first lady of this church, and we're going to talk to her as well. But I want to give you a little bit of the bios of those who are on the stage tonight. Faith, integrity, character, and commitment to serve are guiding principles for the life and ministry of Bishop Dwayne C. Debnam, the senior pastor of the Morning Star Baptist Church here in Woodlawn. Bishop Debnam was called to serve Morning Star in August 1996. And tonight, this movement continues. This is the second social action movement that this pastor and the First Lady have overseen for this church. What's at stake? All right, now, Dr. Carla J. Debnam is the wife of Bishop Dwayne C. Debnam and a member of Morning Star Baptist Church here in Woodlawn. She serves as the executive director of the Renaissance Center, a Christian counseling and outreach ministry of Morning Star Baptist Church, very progressive. Mental health is one of those issues that we're fighting for tonight, right? Dr. Debnam is a member of the American Counseling Association, the Maryland Counseling Association, and so many other associations. And she's also my sorority sister, a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And now we go to, you know what? We'll leave him out until he comes. He'll be here soon. You know who I'm talking about. Next is someone who traveled from the White House today in the rain, and I'm so appreciative for Steve Benjamin. Steve Benjamin is the assistant to the president, senior advisor to the president, and director of public engagement, meaning they engage with the public, okay? Prior to joining the Biden-Harris administration, Benjamin was the mayor of Columbia, South Carolina, from April 2010 through December 2021. I'm gonna say this to you. I appreciate him so much. Again, during the DNC, I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off, trying to get interviews. And I see him, I'm on the phone with Bishop, and I see him running through the halls. I said, I need you for this moment tonight. He said, I'll be there. And he almost didn't make it because he was supposed to fly with the president today. He had to fly over North Carolina, but he wanted to engage with the public here at Morning Star. Thank you. I know you're tired of my clipboard, but we also have Dr. Jewell Debnam. Yes, give it up for her. That name sounds familiar, right? That last name. Jewell Debnam is a historian of African American, United States, and labor and working class histories. In May 2016, Jewell earned her PhD in history from Michigan State University. Next, Senator Chris West. Senator West was elected to the Maryland House of Delegates in 2014, where he served on the Health and Government Operations Committee. He was later elected to the Maryland Senate in 2018, where he has served on the Judicial Proceedings Committee. He has served on numerous bipartisan teams to craft and review policies, including the Justice Reinvestment Act Task Force, the Death with Dignity Task Force, the Procurement Reform Task Force, and the Punitive Damages Workshop. Let's welcome Senator Chris West. Thank you. And also we have Pastor Shannon Wright. Pastor Shannon Wright was born at the height of the 20th century civil rights movement. Many of these experiences went into shaping who Shannon has become today. Because of the way her family taught her the lessons they learned. Wright ran for mayor of Baltimore City, Charm City, in 2020. And she is also now on the Republican ticket for mayor of Baltimore in this political season. And I want to say welcome to our panel. Say welcome. And I want to start off with Steve Benjamin, who's traveled the farthest. Steve, thank you for coming. I appreciate you so much. First of all, tell us, and I want you all to know he's here as a singular citizen. not in his position as assistant to the President of the United States, but he's here as a single person just like you, wanting to learn and offer what he knows. Steve, talk to me about what you see in this moment that we need to really take a look at, and what's at stake in this moment.
First of all, thank you so much, April. This protocol established, we sit down or we stand up, Bishop?
Do whatever you want.
Well, it's an honor to be in the house of the Lord, and I'm thankful for the invitation to be here. As April mentioned, I spent 12 years as mayor of Columbia, South Carolina. People often ask me about the most challenging decisions I made as a mayor. And I think, of course, now in this moment, I think of the floods we had in 2015, that the reminiscent of the challenges that the people in North Carolina and Georgia and others are facing right now. And I tell people that my decisions were never as difficult as people might think they might be, because I always kept my life in perspective, my leadership role in perspective. I was a child of God, a husband and a father. I practiced law to feed my family, and then I was mayor, and it helped me make better decisions every single day. It's always good to be in the Baptist church on any day of the week as a good Baptist. And I will say this, what's at stake in this election, and I'm not giving, those of you who may know me, I'm not giving much to hyperbole. I don't exaggerate. I often just speak about the things I know, and I'm not ever afraid of the words I don't know, because there's always room to learn. If you're surrounding yourself with smart people, you pay attention, you take in wisdom when you can. So I don't give myself to exaggeration, but I will tell you this, I do believe that this is the most important election in the history of our lives.
Why?
I don't think it's by chance that we sit in this historic church founded in 1896, the same year the Supreme Court, if you allow me, my historian here, to talk about Plessy versus Ferguson. And the very first time that separate and equal became the law of the land. And what people across this country, in my home state of South Carolina, the power of Reconstruction and what it meant to black folk across this country. South Carolina is one of the first states in the country, one of the only states in the country after emancipation, after the war, that was majority African American. Federal troops established in the South to make sure that people had the right to the franchise. And you saw an amazing level of participation. You saw a House of Representatives, majority black, a Senate almost black. And think about this, in the 1860s and 70s, black lieutenant governor, secretary of state, state treasurer, the University of South Carolina opened up for the very first time, not just to African Americans and women, the very first time a public education system was established, not only for black folk, but also for non-landed gentry whites. All of those amazing revolutions shut down by the election of 1876 when Rutherford B. Hayes outsmarted Samuel Tilden. The federal troops were pulled from the South, and we started this journey towards institutionalized oppression in this country. It lasted well into, depending on who you talk to, 1964, 1965. We are at a point right now where each and every one of the amazing gains we've made, not just over the last 4 years, and they have been significant, and hopefully you all seen the blue pamphlet that I won't talk about that I use in my official job since I'm here in my personal capacity. But it shows you the amazing leadership of President Biden, Vice President Harris, the teamwork they've shown over the last 4 years, making sure that the real promise of America is real to people all across this country. But we are literally at a point of losing these gains. Someone who speaks very clearly about how he sees America as a country for some people and not for all people, and has aggressively challenged the underpinnings of democracy. And I think it's important that we be willing to understand that we be willing, just as our ancestors, be willing to stand up, speak, be counted, understand that the blood, sweat, and tears paid for the right to the franchise is something that we need to hold dear, and do every single thing we can to make sure that we participate and that everyone that is in our circle and those who may not know us also understands that we have to be present and accounted for on election day. We have to be focused on policy, on the real issues, on how we create economic security and opportunity for folks who don't see it, how we make sure that everyone understands that they have to be involved in the process, how we make sure that everyone has an opportunity to live up to their God-given potential, has access to quality health care, that women have control of their own bodies and not politicians. These are real issues that are affected by policy every single day, and I'll just say this, from the day you're born and your government-issued birth certificate you get to the day you die, your government-issued death certificate, the government's involved in our lives every single day. It ought to be a government shaped by the people and for the people. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. So while you all are sitting out here, I want you to think about your questions, because we're going to go to question and answer soon. We're going to have, this is going to be an interactive experience, because as Steve says, this is a consequential election. And I want to take an unofficial, unscientific poll. How many of you out here are still undecided? Be honest, this is a safe space. All right, all right, all right. I hope tonight gives you some things that you need. Also, how many out here believe the economy is the #1 issue? Wow. Okay, I'm going to ask again. How many out here believe the economy is the #1 issue? Okay. All right. And, okay, we're going to do decency and decorum in order. What is the #1 issue for some of you? Just shout it out in decency and decorum. Immigration. Okay, what else? Democracy. Healthcare. Okay, democracy, raise your hand. Wow. Take that back. Take that back to voting. Who said that? Your husband, my husband, okay? Don't mess with me, all right? All right, voting rights. I agree, we are now voting without the full protections of the Voting Rights Act. Integrity in office, okay. What else, ma'am, what did you say? Women's rights? Is that health care? Okay, that's an issue, that's a very important issue, and I'm gonna let Bishop talk about that, because there's a conversation about, after Roe v. Wade, they're forcing you to have a baby in spite of your own life. So we're gonna have that. I'm gonna go to Bishop with that in a moment, and then we're gonna go to Jewell about the history. There's some more. Yes, ma'am. Education? Public education, yes, sir. Project 2025, okay? How many are concerned about Project 2025? Okay, all right, so these are issues we're gonna talk about. Yes, all the way in the back. Climate change. The devastation of 500-mile swath. And they're expecting 600 people are missing. 600 people are missing. That from the Homeland Security Department, Homeland Security Agency this week. And there's someone else who had another question. Yes, ma'am. Oh, price gouging. All right, where are you gouged? At the pump, at the... All right, yes. The price, that's what she said, the price of everything. So I have that gas gauge. When I drive, I make sure I don't get gas in D.C. I get it here. And then, yeah, at the Royal Farms or someplace, but let me not say names. Where it's cheapest, I mean, for real, you got to do that. But let's go to the issue. I'm recognizing the issues that you're talking about. So Bishop, let's go to health care. Oh, wait a minute, hold on, okay. Guys, I love you. We're gonna do decency and order in this church. Okay, but yes, I'm gonna get you, yes ma'am. Gun control. Who here has been affected by guns? I'm raising my hand too. Who here has been affected by guns? Has anyone here been affected by death by guns in your immediate family? Okay. Thank you for that. There's another question back here. I'm going to get to as many of you as I can. Someone raise their hands. Okay, yes, ma'am, right there. Racism. Just from sitting in this unique perch that I've had the blessing to sit in for 27, going on 28 years, race and money touch everything. Everything. Bishop, let's go to your conversation on this issue of women's health care.
And actually, I'm going to touch on that, and then I'm going to leave that to Jewell to talk about also. Because one of the things that we have to be mindful of, and I'll open this way, salvation is a choice. Whether or not you accept Jesus or not is your choice, which means that God, everything that God offers to us, he allows us to choose to say yes or to say no. And perhaps it's the same even with the way what you do to your body is your choice. And what we have to be mindful of is that if God gives us a choice, then who are we to declare what you can't do? And so often we try to control a narrative that's not ours to control. And so what I just want to place on the table real quick is this, is that God gives us the choice to make choices. Now the consequences are yours, and so are the choices.
All right, and Jewell, at this point, all right. Okay, at this point, I want to go to you. We were just talking about history and voting rights, and so many our freedoms have been taken away. Our freedoms have been lost. The Supreme Court what are we in? We're in something that's called the post-affirmative action era right now. The Supreme Court dealt a blow for black people to go to PWIs or predominantly white institutions because of admissions, and now we're stressing our wonderful HBCUs. Do they have the capacity? We are a community that has historically had the highest numbers of negatives in almost every category, and we're losing our freedoms. Can you link this? Can you help us understand, connect the dots?
One thing I want to say about what my father just said is that in Maryland, reproductive rights are on the ballot. So if you haven't read your sample ballot, you probably should, because you have a choice about that particular issue. Question one. In terms of the history and the context for where we're sitting, I think, yes, we are in the post-affirmative action era, but I think that immediately stems from the post-voting rights era, which is another Supreme Court decision that predates the decision from last year about affirmative action. And I think that part of the issue for African Americans is that voting has always been a great desire, and that we have been extremely invested in the democracy. We saw in the hands. We've been, from the moments we could vote post-emancipation, we have been eager to. And I think we don't always see the benefit of that, and we are often the first people cut out. So historically, when we're thinking about how African Americans vote, I think that the issues that we're facing presently stem from our inability to make our voices be heard, not just at the ballot box, but by putting pressure on politicians after we vote.
But does that pressure mean money? Do we have to come with money? Because a lot of groups come with money, and they are heard much clearer. But I want to put a pin on that for a minute, because we've got a special guest straight from Camden Yards, Oriole Park at Camden Yards. His name is West. His last name is Moore. He's the 63rd governor of the state of Maryland. He is Maryland's first black governor in the state's 246-year history. and is just the third African-American elected governor in the history of the United States of America. Without further ado, I would like to present to you our friend and governor, Governor Wes Moore. So let me tell you while he's doing his handshaking, gripping, and grinning, as we call. I shouldn't say this, but I'm gonna say this. I've known him before he was governor. Yeah, that's right. So yes, I knew his mama before I knew him. And I love her. And I love him for the story that he tells. But I'm gonna tell you, and these kind of stories are not always told. We were texting, we text a lot. And I said, well, look, I need you to come. He's like, yes. Didn't know what was on the schedule. He said, yes. His people didn't know. So he said, let me check. They made sure. He had a suite at Camden Yards, brought people in. But he said, I made a commitment, and he's here. That's the kind of man this governor is. So I know you got a heart out. So first of all, what's the score?
Hey, everybody. Good evening. How y'all doing?
What's the score? 1-1 still?
It's 2-1 now. Kansas City's up.
Anyway.
I know. It's all good, though.
We in church. Let's pray real hard.
That's right.
Enough. Let's take a knee and pray hard. Look, so Governor, what's at stake as you see it? We've got Democrats and we've got Republicans here. You're a Democrat, but what's at stake in this moment, particularly for black people? Before you came in, they were talking about democracy, immigration, women's health care. The economy happened not to be the first thing, especially as our port could possibly have a shutdown.
That's right.
And somebody was saying the price of things, everything is too high. If the shore, if the ports shut down, you think you gouge now?
No, we're talking about, the Port of Baltimore, our port, America's port. I mean, we're talking about the largest port for new cars, for heavy trucks, for agricultural equipment, for spices, sugars. That's something that's worth around 13% of our state's economy. 13% of our state's economy. Something that employs thousands of people. There are around 1,000 small businesses that rely on the Port of Baltimore and rely on its workers. So when we're talking about something being catastrophic, it's not just catastrophic, frankly, for what it means for our state. We're also talking about supply chains. 2/3 of the country is powered by the Port of Baltimore. And
wait a minute, 2/3 of the country, not just locally, not just the region, the whole country.
I mean, when they say who's this going to impact, it's the farmer in Kentucky who now can't get their farming equipment. It's the auto dealer in Michigan who now cannot get their cars. It's the restaurant in Kansas who can't get spices. I mean, we're talking about something that's going to have a massive impact, and that's just our port, right? Now, the thing is, what I think is also really important, we're talking about what's at stake in this election. I cannot stress enough how much it matters who sits in these seats. Because let's be clear, and I'll be brief, but let's be clear. Everything in our lives is a policy decision. The air you breathe is a policy decision. The water you drink is a policy decision.
How clean
that water is, right?
How lead-free.
The homes we live in, those are policy decisions. The way we are policed, that is a policy decision. The transportation assets you have or do not have, that is a policy decision. The schools our children attend, that is a policy decision. Everything is a policy decision. And so who we have sitting in these seats, and do they think about us? Do they remember us? Are we what's on their mind when those doors are closed and they have to make decisions on our behalf? And listen, you know, and you know, I understand, you know, I'm in the house of the Lord. I understand the difference between church and state.
Decency and decorum, Governor.
Yes, I promise. I understand the difference between church and state, and I want to be very clear. I'm a child of God. I know who woke me up this morning. I know who will put me to bed tonight. I know who orders my steps. So I understand the difference between church and state. I will say this, though. In just the past 72 hours, we heard one presidential candidate say the other presidential candidate was born mentally inferior.
There are a lot of distractions, and we're not distracted tonight.
We're not distracted, and we're not confused. We heard one presidential candidate say that for one of the signature issues of both the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan have been what they call TBIs, traumatic brain injuries, PTSD, post-traumatic stress, right? We had one presidential candidate who said the people who are coming back home, the people who I serve with, my brothers and sisters, who came back home and said that for those who are suffering from TBI, traumatic brain injuries, that it was nothing more than headaches. This is real, y'all. This is not a game. And the decision that is made on November 5th, I want to be clear. The people who came before us are looking at us right now. And they're asking, are we willing to put in the work? The people who will come after us are looking at us right now and asking, are we willing to put in the work, and are we willing to prepare and also protect their futures? And so when I say that, listen, you know, we got, now it's down to 33 days and a wake up to give it all we've got. I want us to be exhausted on election day. Absolutely exhausted. Because if we can do that, we're gonna make sure that we actually honor the obligations that we have, being able to focus on creating pathways to work and wages and wealth for all of our communities and not just some. Creating pathways where we can have an education system that's teaching our young people how not just to be employees, but how to be employers. And making sure that we have the right partners that we need at the federal level. And by the way, that includes making sure you come out and vote at every single stage, and that includes, and again, I know I'm not supposed
down
to,
ballot.
I know I'm not supposed to, you know, whatever, but I'm saying we should also, in the Maryland Senate, also,
oh, I got it. I just got it.
also,
Okay. I just got it. That's a shame.
make sure we elect her to the United States Senate representing the state of Maryland.
Okay.
I'm not gonna get nobody in more trouble. We gotta make sure we vote. We gotta make sure we make our voice heard. We gotta make sure we honor the promise of those that came before us and the hope of those that come after us.
So we've got a lot of independents out here. We've got a lot of Democrats out here. We've got a lot of Republicans out here. We wanted to cover the gambit. We have Republicans here, and we're going to talk to Senator West. Senator West, what do you believe is at stake in this moment? You are a Republican, and it's been studied and shown that Republicans do not see the same issues that Democrats see in the same way.
Okay. Well, let me do what J.D. Vance did for the first 30 seconds when he was asked his first question last night and identify.
Who watched last night?
Great.
Okay.
So he spent 30 seconds introducing himself. So people here really don't know me. I am 74 years old, in my second term as a state senator. I have shown over the years that I've been in Annapolis that I'm far away the most bipartisan legislator in Annapolis. I work across the aisle all the time. I have passed over 80 bills, far and away more than any other Republican, and frankly, more than all but a handful of Democrats, because I am acutely a-partisan. I try not to let my partisanship, to the extent I have it at all, show itself in Annapolis. I have never opened my mouth since Donald Trump first came down that escalator and said one positive thing about Donald Trump. And I'm not going to change that tune tonight. So you're not going to hear me in any way try to defend that man. However, let me say this. Somebody earlier said this is our most important election ever. Normally, I would discount that, but because the parties are so polarized, because the Democrats are so far on the left and the Republicans are so far on the right, I fear what would happen if any one of the parties took over Washington lock, stock, and barrel. I don't want that to happen. So if Kamala Harris wins the presidency, I would prefer the Republicans to control one of the houses of Congress, so they have to work together.
So you're saying a balance. You want a balance.
I want a balance. When
a political balance. He wants a political balance.
Let me finish by saying this. When Bill Ferguson was first elected to the state senate, he came out to visit me in my district. He says, is there anything that really turns you on? And I said, yes. There's something that very much turns me on. I do not want Annapolis to become Washington, D.C. on the Severn. I don't want the rancorous partisanship that I see every single day in Washington, where people call each other names and can't get along and can't work together. I don't want that kind of an ethos to leak over into Annapolis. I like what we have in Annapolis, where we work together. That's what I've done for the past 10 years since I first got elected, and that's what I intend to do for the last 2 years until I retire. So I want to see, in any way we can, we need to narrow the gap between the parties and learn how to work together in a bipartisan way, which will create the best legislation for everyone.
I actually want to just say how much I appreciate the senator. And for those who might not know him, this is a man, he means what he says. We have introduced 26 pieces of legislation since I've been the governor. We've gone 26 for 26, but also we've gone 26 for 26 bipartisan, with both Democrat and Republican support on every single bill that we've introduced. Senator West is one of those people who we have an outstanding relationship with. And I just want to say, and perfect example, when a few months back, we ended up signing the largest mass pardon for misdemeanor cannabis convictions in the history of the United States. 175,000 convictions were pardoned. And one of the people who we both worked with, who we stood with on this, was Republican Senator Chris West. I just want to say that I want to say publicly how much I appreciate you, that he's a person who means what he says. And when you're talking about someone who is willing to work across the aisle to make things happen for the betterment of all of our communities, he is a real one. And so I just want to say how much I appreciate you.
So another unofficial, unscientific poll. How many of you are sick and tired of being sick and tired of what's happening in politics? The parties can't get along. How does it affect you? Is it something that really stresses you out? What'd you say, furloughs? The fact that we might, that's right, not passing a budget, and you could wind up losing your job or not getting services. First Lady Carla Debnam, you deal with these kind of issues. In the last couple of years, I've been hearing a lot of people speaking how it's really impacting them. And you said earlier, it's just yet another layer that people have to worry about. Politics is supposed to be about people. It's not supposed to be about party. Where do you think, and how do you think people can navigate through this so they're not as stressed?
I think people are stressed, so let's acknowledge that we are stressed. When you have to worry about whether you're going to have a job or not, or are the bills going to be passed in the nick of time so that the government won't shut down and services won't be stopped. So this affects us, you know, everywhere, not just in this area where it's a high amount of people that work for the federal government and
Just
the
across the
economy.
street, Social Security
Yeah,
Administration.
right. And the economy is run. Again, the government is across the whole country, but it's a great number here. So the stress that people are under, again, are in layers. So for instance, if I'm worried about putting food on the table, then I'm worried about, again, gas prices, if those are up in certain areas, and it just depends on where you go. And then food prices. So politics and the fact that people above us are making these decisions in rooms that we don't usually get to enter into, these things become a stressor for us in addition to our everyday life of parenting, being a caregiver, whatever roles we might play in our everyday life. You add the politics and the uncomfortable situations people find themselves in, whether it's in with public safety, just those kinds of things are on people's minds. And we heard people raise their hand about gun control, so violence is something, again, that is a compounded worry and stressor for people. So I think it's all of it is a mental health issue. And we found out in COVID that whole COVID, when COVID came to us and everybody in the world was impacted, we saw the lid come off on mental health. We saw people not handling life well, and maybe they could manage before, but once COVID hit, everybody came out of the closet with their issues and concerns, and now we have the political fray to add to that.
So I'm going to invoke the name of a woman, Shirley Chisholm, first black woman who ran for president in 1972, before there was Kamala, la, 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 la. There was Shirley Chisholm. So Shirley Chisholm said, if you don't have a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. A lot of us are wearing invisible folding chairs to combat that mental illness, to work through it. And yeah, because as much as I love him as a person, he's the governor. You got him there, but you got to make him sometimes do it with the president. Am I right? Sometimes Steve and Erica, my dear friend Erica, stand up, chief of staff at the White House for Steve Benjamin. Thank you for both of you coming here. They listen to people. You listen to people to find out what the problem is. And if you don't squeak, you will not be oiled. Do you understand me? Am I telling you the truth? All right, say it in your microphone.
Amen on that.
All right, there you go. All right, Shannon, you are running for mayor of Baltimore City, and you just heard, we just talked about, you're running for mayor on the Republican side. We just talked about the Port of Baltimore. Baltimore's crime numbers have gone down. Baltimore still has a lot of blight. Baltimore still, I love my city, but we still got some issues. What do you think, as a Republican going into this vast Democratic space, that Baltimore needs and you can offer?
Well, first of all, I'd like to steal a page from Governor Moore's book as he also talks about voting to make sure if you're in Baltimore to vote right. Now, that being said, first of all, I'm a child of God. So I know that in a Democratic seat, there's nothing that my God can't handle. And if I'm supposed to be in City Hall, I'm going to be there. Okay, can you hear me now? Okay. I do not have an outdoor voice, and I apologize for that. In the form of Theodore Roosevelt, I speak softly and carry a big stick, and I've been married to my big stick for 25 years now. Love your husband. So I'm going to say this kind of quickly. Governor Moore, yesterday in the news, you talked about juvenile justice reform and that you were willing to work with anybody that was serious about doing the work. I'm serious about doing the work, so I'm going to be reaching out. We have a lot of things we need to do, but let me just say this first. The fact that you're here in a house of God means you are people of God, at least in my mind. that being said, it is incumbent upon all of us, regardless or irregardless to party, to think about that book, that encyclopedia that was written a long time ago, which tells us all how we are supposed to do in different circumstances. Now, some folks might say, well, you're running for office and you're a Republican. Yes, I am, and I'm gonna tell you why. I was raised to believe that true power doesn't come from a seat at somebody's table, it comes from a seat at every table. Let me say that again. True power, going back to the civil rights and the blood, sweat, and tears that was spent, comes from a seat at every table. So I'm going to have a seat at a table where most folks may not want to go, because I want to be able to control part of that dialogue. Now, when it comes to crime and Baltimore and the port and economics, it is a circle of things that need to happen. And bless our current mayor's soul, he ain't old enough to understand that. We need education that works, because education is the only sustainable way out of poverty. We need quality of life improvement, because quality of life improvement improves property value, improves tax base, makes companies want to come and bring jobs and stay, so that when little boo-boo on the corner is out deciding if he's going to work or going to rob you, he don't have to rob you, because he's got an education that is worth more than the paper it's printed on. And he's able to get a job where he's able to feed his family. Because somewhere along the line, and I hold all y'all responsible for this, and my voice just got loud, thank you, Jesus. Somewhere along the line, we forgot to strive for Black excellence. Now, until you bring that Black excellence back, nothing that anyone you elect will change a thing. And that starts from each of us individually, that starts in our communities, that starts in our school buildings, that is everywhere. When you see something that is wrong, don't just sit there and look at it and say, that's not what my God said to do. That's not what I'm gonna do. I don't care what you're gonna do. Each and every one of us has a responsibility and the power to make a difference. So yes, I am running for mayor in Baltimore City, and Ms. Ryan stated that there's a difference between the way Republicans and Democrats look at issues. But I'm gonna tell you this, I want my kids to get up, go to school, come home a little smarter than they did with all the parts and pieces they left in the morning with.
That part.
I don't think anybody's different on that. I want to know that folks in my neighborhood have a job, they can put food on their table, so they don't try and break in my door to get the food off my table. There are certain things that are common. There are certain things that transcend policy, parties, or politics. And those are the things that are at stake in this election, and that we all need to be not thinking about, praying about, before filling out your ballots.
Thank you so much. We got I want you all to start thinking about your questions, and you collected some, Andrea? All right, we've got some questions. And also, if you're not registered to vote, we have a voting table right outside. Please. And your vote will be counted once you do it here. All right, let's go to you, Dr. Brown, Dr. Brown, Dr. Brown.
A number of hundreds of people are online, and a number of questions. One of them is Project 2025, my understanding, the writer says, calls for the shutdown of the Department of Education. How do we manage the education of our children without a Department of Education?
I don't know how, because we were not managing it well under COVID. That's all I'm going to say. But that's, Steve, I'm going to go to you from the White House. Speak on the education front. We are woeful in the Black community when it comes to education. Our numbers are terrible. Our graduation rates are not the best. Please talk to us about education, just on a broader scope, how important it is for our community, and if you can talk a little bit more granularly about Project 2025.
I'm going to let my brother, Governor Moore, talk about Project 2025.
I'm letting him do it.
It's so interesting, and again, having served 12 years as mayor and spent a great deal of time with our current Secretary of Education, and I know how central a good education has been to my life and to the lives of men and women who surround me. My father had very little formal education, didn't finish high school. My mother did and made sure that both of their boys got the education that they required. But so, I'm gonna say this, and this may be popular here, it may not be popular here, but we're gonna be all right. We have incredible teachers, incredible educators who go get educated, who are representative of Black excellence, who give of their time, their talents, their treasures to raise our babies. What we do have also, we have wonderful schools because of the partnership the governor has with the president and others. We have record amounts of broadband, which some people didn't realize was essential to education until the pandemic hit. People didn't have access to broadband, and kids going parking in McDonald's parking lots to get access to the internet. But we have great teachers. In most places, we have great facilities as well. But we do also have a disproportionate number of children going to school not ready to learn. That's not an indictment of the education system. It's not an indictment of teachers. It's an indictment of us as a society. Children don't fail. Adults fail children. And we have to remember that. We have to prepare our children to go out and do the great things that God has in store for them. You see our babies. You see them, and I did over 300 school visits when I was mayor of Columbia, South Carolina. Whenever I was in a bad mood at City Hall, my staff would schedule me to go to a school. I go see the babies, I come back in a much better mood. Because I'd go and I'd see those little boys. Now, in 12 years I was mayor, so you'll think about that. So I saw children from the time they finished kindergarten to the time they finished high school. And you watch children over the course of that journey. First grade, second grade, third grade, the boys are coming, they're hugging you, they want to go home with you. They start getting a little harder, they start getting a little more influenced by the communities that they might be coming from, the lack of some type of guidance at home sometimes because the parents don't know exactly how to raise babies. But we have to make sure as a society that we surround our children, that we actually do make these policy decisions that the governor made. When you have one leader working to establish the very first Office of Gun Violence Prevention in the history of the White House, and working to take guns out of our schools, working to make sure our babies are safe, that we don't have to send them to school. And you have not like the Senate and others, but you have others who try. There are more guns, y'all. Think about this. There are more guns on the street of America right now than there are human beings. You think about that. More than 500 million guns. Not even counting the ones people are making in their basements with 3D printers right now. Ghost guns. I mean, it's real. The number one killer of our children right now, firearms. And we can't make the policy decisions to keep them safe. Our babies are going to school with PTSD at age 3, 4, and 5, ACEs. It's amazing what the decisions that we make every single day. And then we wonder why Johnny doesn't know the 3 R's. It's because he's too busy trying to figure out how to get fed, how to be safe, and how to make sure that he can do the great things. And let me say this, and I'll stop. Our education system, along the way, has, however, failed our children. This isn't the schools. These are our policy decisions. Every baby doesn't need to go to college. I have a child. I have a child at Spelman College. My heart and my money go to Spelman College every single semester. But I have some buddies I went to high school with who were masters in shop class, y'all. They became electricians. They became plumbers. They finished school without $100,000 of student loan debt, and they make a better living than some of my friends that went to college with me. There are so many different pathways to success, so many different pathways to the middle class. The president has been very clear, and the vice president as well. We have to make sure that we focus on building economy from the middle out and bottom up, recognizing that access to work, to good middle class incomes and lives is something that everyone should have a pathway to, and there's so many different ways to get there. There's so many different ways. His efforts to remove almost $180 billion of student loan debt from folks, the way it's been crippling our kids. Record amounts of money going to HBCUs. And some of you, again, I went to PWI. My daughter's at Spelman College. The #1 accelerator, this is demonstrated by the Board of Economic Advisors, Council of Economic Advisors. The #1 accelerator of black wealth, moving our kids, are HBCUs.
HBCUs.
The best investment you can make.
How many of you are HBCU grads out here?
The best investment you can make.
That's right. That's
I
right.
mean, so anyway, education is the key to success. But there's so many different ways to get there. But we have to invest in them. We have to make sure our children are ready to learn. We have to protect them even sometimes from themselves.
Morgan State University right here.
Go Bears.
All right, all right,
We got
all
homecoming
right.
coming up too.
What you say?
So we got homecoming coming up.
That's this weekend.
This
Oh my
weekend.
goodness, yes. So yes, Project 2025.
So I mean, I'll be brief on it, but here's how dangerous Project 2025 is. So Project 2025, you all know the background behind it. This is a multi-years long plan that has been devised, much of it by people who worked within the Trump administration, who since Donald Trump, since he lost in 2020, have now been working on this plan, Project 2025, that really focuses on what are going to be the policy issues that will be in place once Donald Trump wins in 2024. Here's how wild Project 2025 is. It's a 900-page document that even Donald Trump says that he has not read and does not want to incorporate. That's how unpopular it is. That's how wild some of the ideas in Project 2025 are. But this is the policy book. This is the book that has been written and has been worked on for years that if Donald Trump returns to the White House, he's going to implement, which includes things such as the weaponization and the politicization of the Department of Justice. That includes things like taking and cutting and slashing the Department of Education, literally eliminating the Department of Education. That includes things like, when we're talking about education, talking about the enforcement and the banning of certain books, to include things like The Bluest Eye, to include things like Ta-Nehisi Coates' Between the World and Me, like books about our history, books about our culture. You want to talk about black excellence. We're talking about the books that are literally challenging black excellence. And done on a premise of, well, this is, we don't want young people reading books because it will make other kids feel bad.
Or guilty.
But we know that's not the reason why. The reason is because if we do not allow our children to understand our history, we'll never understand our greatness. Talking about things like the slashing of budgets from the Small Business Administration. What that does is that hurts our ability for small businesses to be able to grow. Many times we're talking about minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses. It's talking about things like the continuation and the hardening of the tax credits that were passed in 2017, which frankly won't even make erasing and eliminating a racial wealth gap and talk about a deficit, won't even make it challenging, it'll make it impossible. And so if people just need to understand about Project 2025, say if you have any question about the danger of Project 2025, that again was created by people who worked within Donald Trump's administration, not even Donald Trump owns it. That's how wild this document is. But let's be clear, that's the playbook that they will have in place if they were to enter back into the White House in January.
And going back...
And I'm sorry, can I say one more thing about
Yes,
2025?
yes.
It also talks about things like the elimination and politicization of mid-level government jobs and turning them into political assignments and political
Loyalty
roles.
tests.
Loyalty tests. Let's be clear. Do you know, and one of the reasons that I am so against this, do you know who we're talking about when we're talking about mid-level government employees? People who are... It's not just, it's Marylanders. It's people who live in our states, who have been working for the government for years in non-political positions, who will now watch their jobs eliminated because they do not pass a loyalty test. That's what we're talking about with Project 2025.
Yeah. How many of you, he just mentioned small business. Small business is the engine of this country, the economic engine of this country. How many of you own a small business around here? Raise your hand high. All right. Just wanting to know. Again, another unscientific poll, but it's important that we know this. It's important that we know all of this because this impacts you. All right, Andrea, you've been standing there so patiently. Thank you. We have a question.
So I'm standing here with Maman Hollard, and he's from Coppin State University.
All right, HBCU.
So my question is going to be addressed towards Senator West. I believe you were a member of the Health and Government Operations Committee, so I'd like to ask you, and any other panel members who are willing to chime in, what do you believe will change after the election in terms of healthcare and students, healthcare for students and their families?
Well, I was on HGO, Health and Government Operations, when I was in the House 6 years ago. So I'm 6 years out of it. Frankly, this election, the presidential election, is, from my perspective, largely without issues. I mean, you can't listen to Donald Trump and make sense of anything he's saying in terms of the issues. So, and Kamala Harris is new to the game and has been rather vague on where she stands on things.
Wait a minute, she's not new to the game.
Well, she's new to this game. She's been, 8 weeks now as a candidate for president.
Okay, I'm gonna stop right here.
Sure.
She is the Vice President of the United States of America. She is right next to the President of the United States. She is in meetings. She understands what's going on. I'm not going to say she's new. She has been doing this for the last 3.5, almost 4 years. She's new to running for president second time, this time.
Let me just say that.
She is more qualified than any other president that's out there. And I'm saying this, I mean, I'm not going against you, but I take umbrage about how people, I'm a black woman. I wrote a book about a black woman, writing another book about black women. I just take umbrage of how we're so dismissive when we say things about this black woman who has got a chance to be the president of the United States.
Well, I'm
Democrat,
not.
I hear you. It's not against you, but I just want to make sure.
You're putting words in my mouth that I didn't
No,
say.
sir, I didn't. But no, but we're going to go in decency and order. Let's go ahead.
So, but I'll be honest with you, I didn't focus too much on the vice president until about 8 weeks ago, because it looked like Joe Biden was going to be the party's nominee and it was focusing on him. In the 8 weeks, I haven't heard Kamala Harris say much about healthcare, especially for students. Maybe you have, I haven't. But so look, if I could pivot for that for just a second and come back to the education issue, I do have an insight that I got in the last session of the General Assembly that I thought it'd be useful to share. So in my committee, we had a hearing on young people who are committing crimes. And we had a professor from Johns Hopkins University come, and he said he had done a study on young people who had been admitted to the shock trauma in downtown Baltimore, who either died or were admitted with life-threatening injuries. And he tried to find, is there anything in common with these people? All of them from the inner city Baltimore, and they were all in shock trauma, either dead or in danger of dying. And he said the one common denominator of all of those people, 69 of the 70 people, were high school dropouts. Now that was eye-opening to me. And then we had someone from a Catonsville high school. I see Charles Sidner, Senator Charles Sidner is here, who represents Catonsville, don't you?
Senator Sidner, stand up, please. Thank you. Good man, good man. We know him for a long time. He's a great guy. Thank you.
By the way, I should mention Julian Jones. Councilman Julian Jones is also here this evening. So the principal from Catonsville talked about what she was doing in her high school to deal with dropouts. Every single day, the leaders of the school got together and they talked about the students individually who didn't show up to school that day. And they tried to focus on what problems they were having. And they made a real dent in dropouts at that school. So, number one, we identified a problem. And number two, we talked to someone in our committee who was addressing the problem effectively to solve it. So we're talking about, this is just a small deal with education, but it was eye-opening to me, and I thought I would share it with you.
Thank you so much for sharing. That's a great story. Yes, Dr. Brown.
Questions online, but one of them is a comment. Can someone emphasize the need for millennials, independents, and Gen X to vote? Why it's important for them to be at the polls and exercise their right to vote?
Jewell, from a historic perspective, compare and contrast yesterday to today, please.
I don't know if we need a historic context necessarily for this. I mean, I think apathy is really dangerous, and we can't allow our feelings of maybe the belief that nothing will change because we vote stop us. Because if we don't vote, that is a vote. That's exercising your voice, and these policies will live with us. Our parents may be gone well before the impact of some of the things they're interested in passing via Project 2025, but we will be here, hopefully. And so we need to be mindful of the future, to Governor Moore's point, that we can't stay solely in the present, because I think people are valid in feeling hopeless and really disconnected from the political process. But you have to find things that are meaningful to you. If that's one issue, if that's your children's futures, I think that we have to be concerned about more than ourselves in this election. We can't, as Black people, afford to be single issue voters. We can't afford to be selfish, because we know what happens to us if the policies don't go our way. We feel it more. So we have to be more active. And I think people my age and my older brother's age and Gen X, I mean, this is our time to make our voices heard. I am personally more concerned about Gen Z, because I teach Gen Z people, and they are certainly very apathetic, some of them. And so I'm not really sure how you motivate them when they feel very, very hopeless, especially related to the climate. They feel really sort of like there's not a lot of future for them because of that.
And thank you for that. But I wanna go to you, Bishop, because the church and young people have been very active in movements throughout our history. As we know, the civil rights era, when Dr. Martin Luther King started marching, he only had 4% of Black churches supporting him. Hello?
He was only 25 years old.
Right. that part too. Young, but yeah, so they might have thought he was young and dumb, but still he only had, a lot of Black people in the South didn't want people to rock the boat. They're like, we don't need them messing with us. He only had 4% of Black churches, 25 years old, and he created a movement that got us the Civil Rights Act, and then a year later, the Voting Rights Act, which is now gutted, unfortunately. Bishop, can you talk to us about the importance of youth in church? Because during COVID, when we were all in the house, maybe both of you can chime in on this, we were all discontented, but those young people were the ones who got up and got out on George Floyd. Those young people were the ones that led that. Those young people are saying what they don't like in this moment. Talk to us about why young people are so powerful and poignant in this moment. Both of you, please.
I think young people are so important because, to piggyback on Jewell, they are going to be living in some of the decisions that we make for them. And so we have to be aware of that. But young people sometimes see things that we don't see. And again, they have the fight in them. And again, with Jewell mentioning, some are hopeless, especially as it relates to the climate and what kind of world will be here for them, when they get older. But if we could get them focused on a particular part of their passion, and behind that passion develop their purpose, and then they can kind of get involved in activities and in different things that will promote them in the community and engagement. One thing that we don't do enough of is encourage our children to discuss current events or politics or just things in the community, things that they're concerned about, and we need to have more discussions with our children so that they can be informed, and then they can then develop the passions to do something about what's going on in the world around them. So I appreciate that our youth are passionate about, sometimes PlayStation and those things, but if we put the seed in them, they can, again, develop passion about taking care of other people and doing some things that we've seen, like in Flint, Michigan.
Yes.
The young lady about the lead in the water, right?
Yes.
She's been fighting that, and it's still lead in the water. That's been years, and she started as an 8-year-old. So we can do something to engage the youth. It's just that we have to meet them where they are.
And how many of you actually sit and talk with your children or your grandchildren, thank you, for about news and things? Raise your hand high. Raise your hands high. Okay. All right. That's good. Good parenting. For those of you who don't, please start doing, because this is the way we train them and help them understand life. Bishop, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, very briefly. One of the things that I think we have to be mindful of is that most of our young people are sincerely concerned about the future. And because they're concerned about the future, they're dreaming, they have ideas, they have goals, and if we don't encourage them to invest in right now, then their futures may never become their reality. And so what we have to do is to make sure that we hear them and hear them to the point where they are dreaming, they do have goals, they have desires. They may not be the same as ours, but our role in their life is to have a future that they can flourish in. And they won't be able to flourish in that if we open doors for them.
Amen. That was an amen. A future that you can flourish in. That's a big deal. So someone brought up immigration here. Immigration is a hot topic. Everybody's going to the border. Everybody's talking about the southern border. And I want to, before I go into the next piece, and I'm going to give this to the governor, I want you all to know we have a broken immigration system. Yes, we do. But guess what? It didn't just happen. It didn't just happen. But I also want you to know this. It's not just Mexicans coming to that border. It's not just Mexicans coming to that Arizona, Mexico border. It's not just Mexicans coming to the Texas, Mexico border. It's people who look like you and me coming to that border as well. Also Ukrainians, also Brazilians. Everybody comes to that border. But we keep hearing about black and brown people. I want you to remember that. And also, yes, our immigration system is broken, but the border is one piece. One piece. Homeland Security said last year in a study, I read it, I talked about it, and I still talk about this, because this is about the browning of America. And I'm brown as they can be, I think. And I say this because it's kind of offensive, because those who fly in from other countries and overstay their visas, it's not a problem. But that southern border is the issue. So I want you to read between the lines and understand what's going on when they're talking about immigration issues. And my dear friend, the governor, please talk to me about immigration, because this is from my reporting, okay? This is from my reporting. But Governor, tell me what you can talk about with immigration.
This is one of the many reasons why I love you, sister. Because, no, I'm serious. Because you're right. Not all immigration is a problem. And not all immigration is spoken as a problem. Let's be clear. You know, when you think about in so many ways an important part of the heartbeat of the American economy, and frankly, an important part of the heartbeat of Maryland's economy, immigration actually plays an important part in that heartbeat, right? Where so many of the small business generations, so many of you look at, we're talking about 20% of Maryland's labor workforce participation. So there's a demonization that has taken place of immigration. in a very unfair way that frankly is not backed by data. Now, is there a challenge that we have and a larger border crisis that we have? The answer is yes. And I don't think there's anybody who can deny that part. And unfortunately, what happens for a lot of states is we don't control immigration policy, but we end up suffering the consequences of broken immigration policies. That's true. Now, the thing that we all urge, the thing we all hope for, though, is making sure that we can actually pull and drill policies that by definition must come from Congress in order to fix a larger immigration challenge. That Congress is the one that has to produce the laws, Congress is the one that has to pass it, and then it goes to the White House for the president to sign it, right? That is legally how it must happen. And we actually had real progress and a real opportunity on that earlier this year, when both Democrats and Republicans, because this is, frankly, this is not a partisan issue. Democrats and Republicans both agreed we have got to address the immigration challenge that exists within our communities, within our society. Everybody is screaming for it. Citizens are screaming for it. Local and state elected officials are. So they got to work. And you had Democratic and Republican leaders in Congress who said, let's craft a plan. Let's work together to craft a plan that actually addresses the flow of fentanyl across our borders that is killing us. Let's address the fact that we have a shortage of border agents. So you don't have border agents who are both overworked and entire agencies that are understaffed, so we can actually put people on the ground to better support the work that's happening. We had a bill that had a measure of Democratic and Republican support. And frankly, both saying it's not a perfect bill, but both saying, but it's a good enough bill that I'm willing to get past it. That you can get someone like Bernie Sanders, who says, you know what, it's not a perfect bill, but I'm gonna back it because it's good enough, and this is the best we have gotten done in 30 years. And then you get someone like Senator Langford in Oklahoma, one of the most conservative members of Congress, who says, you know what, this is not a perfect bill. However, this is the best we have gotten done in 30 years, I'm gonna back it. In fact, he didn't say I'm gonna back it, he says I'm gonna be one of the co-authors of it, Senator Langford. And it was killed. It was killed. A bill that neither side thought was perfect, but both sides thought was important. And we had a president who says, if this bill makes it to my desk, I will sign it. And it was killed. And so I just want to be, I want to be clear. This issue did not die because of policy. It died because of politics. And this leads to the larger frustration that people have about politics. Where, you know, I'm not sure, I think you were over there in the Black system, when you were like, yes ma'am, when you were like, you know, it's part of the problem that people have a frustration about policy when they talk about things like furloughs and all that kind of stuff. These aren't policy decisions. These are political decisions that are dealing with people's lives. Like, there are people who will suffer. There are people whose lives will be immeasurably changed. There were families that will be ripped apart. There were people who will lose their lives because of politics. And that's what fuels the frustration and the skepticism that so many people have. And so it's important that the people who we put in these seats, that these are people who actually are true public servants. People who actually are willing to say, I'm willing to work with anybody if it means that we can get to a better solution for the people that put us there in the first place. And so it's important that, you know, and again, you know, I thank God for you, because it's important that we actually add a sense of both fact and context behind the idea of immigration, and how the narrative sometimes goes. It's not a very honest narrative about when we're talking immigration. But it's also important to remember this, is that Congress has a very real responsibility to fix this. And a unique responsibility to fix this because this is a congressional responsibility. Again, there is no governor in America that controls immigration policy, right? By definition, is it a congressional responsibility, but we need Congress to do their job. We need them to get back together. We need them to get a bill done, and then we need to make sure that the President of the United States can make it law so we can actually fix this problem once and for all.
And the governor doesn't have much time, but I want to thank you. But before you go, there was at Essence Festival, the largest gathering of black folks, a couple of years ago. The CEO of a company that you guys go to a lot, it's one of those stores that you always go into, said to me, I said, what about this immigration thing? He said he didn't like it. The international head of this store that is around here that you go to, he said he doesn't like it because if indeed they stop people coming from the border, it's going to bankrupt the economic system here. Think about this. The people you get to do a lot of things around your house. That's right. Think about this. Think about this. Our economy will shake. Think about this. Now I want to go to the Republicans. Well, first of all, I know you got to go somewhere. I thank you, my brother. No. I thank you.
I love you. I love you. I love you. I love y'all. Thank you so much. God bless you.
And there's James.
The general.
Wait a minute, sir. Sir, wait a minute. We can't hear you. Wait a minute. Okay. We're doing it decency and order. Hold on 1 second. Are you learning something from this tonight? My undecideds, are you feeling a little bit better? Okay, I didn't hear anything. Okay, but I'm hoping you get something from this. I hope you're getting something from this. Yes, sir, in decency and order, yes.
I'm Reverend Dr. McCoy. I'm a member of this church here. But what I want us to listen to is what you said, and we haven't touched on democracy. Democracy is not just based upon what Trump is saying, but what you said Congress is not doing. That's the true threat that we're looking at as far as what is at stake. Elected officials are serving a constituency that does not benefit the people of this country. And until that is dealt with, in reality, we can talk black, white, rich, or whatever, until the constituency that they call the constituency. I was raised up that when I registered to vote, I was part of a constituency. I was called one time by, hold on for a moment. Come on. Jesse Jackson called me, asked me to vote for his son. I said no. They said I was not part of their constituency because of money that they wanted put in.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but do we have time to finish the question?
Okay. Thank you
So
for being
my
considerate of the time. Thank you.
is just the fact that if we're going to get to the point, which time is already here, 8 o'clock, whatever, democracy is at stake based upon the constituency that 1% of individuals that have yet to come, deal with what we have to deal with. And briefly just saying this, so I can take my seat. I wrote a letter to Governor Hogan stating that every state has rich folk. We could have got a whole lot of things done if the rich were willing to do. Not sit back and say, let the government stay outside of our business, but help themselves to everything that the government has.
Sir, do you have a question? Because we're kind of moving on time.
I said we need to talk about
We're going to talk about democracy, and I'm gonna let Steve, because the governor and Steve have to go because they were so kind to come to this, and I thank them. But we're gonna Steve is this pamphlet. You all are going to walk out with this piece of paper from the White House about. You can talk about it, and then say everything about democracy and whatever you need to say, sir.
No, obviously our central responsibility as citizens is just to vote, make sure we're educated on the issues when we vote, and make sure that we do, yes, hold all of our elected officials and appointed officials accountable to make sure that they deliver for us every single day. It's easy to, and you could watch the debate last night and the other debate, it's very easy nowadays to obscure facts. And the facts are, as April touched on earlier, and the governor has touched on so adeptly as well, is that every single day, not just 4 years as vice president, as a U.S. senator before that, as an attorney general before that, as a district attorney before that, our vice president has been talking the talk and walking the walk. She is a wonderful leader. She's representative of so many talented women, just like the women who run my house, my wife and my 2 teenage daughters. The work that she, along with the president, have done over the last several years has made a difference. That young brother from Coppin State who asked the question earlier, healthcare decisions affect each and every one of us. And you think about a healthcare policy that focuses on repealing the Affordable Care Act, that has led to more people being insured for the very first time in the history of this country, has led to $35 insulin. Y'all might call it diabetes. In my household, we call it the sugar still. $35 insulin, capping the cost of prescription drugs at $2,000 a year for folks who were struggling to make sure that they could meet their obligations and also keep their lives running. Focusing on sickle cell as a focus for the very first time, the Centers on Medicare services. The fact that by 2030 in this country, every single lead pipe will be removed from the ground in this country because of the Biden-Harris infrastructure bill. Stop poisoning our families. These are policy decisions made by the leadership of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris that endeavors to make sure that each and every one of us is included. And I have to say this, Bishop, before I go. Also, the very first time the White House has had an office devoted to the Divine Nine, working closely with the Divine Nine to make things happen, the great work the Divine Nine does. I tried to get him to establish the office just focused on Kappas, but he decided he had to make sure everybody was included. I don't know. But I will tell you, these decisions, we talk about, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to go, because I work for Joe Biden in my day job. It's nighttime. I'm not working right now. The most important decision the president had to make was 4 years ago, when he decided if he had to go on the glory someday, who would be leader of the free world? He chose a black woman. He made a campaign promise on the stage in South Carolina that if an opportunity came for him to undo the damage that Donald Trump did to the Supreme Court, that he was going to appoint a black woman to the Supreme Court, Ketanji Brown Jackson. He's appointed more black women to the courts of appeals than every single president in the history of this country combined.
But qualified, not just window
Highly
dressing,
qualified, including my wife. I will say that, who is an appeals court judge. I can't get a word into my house. Whole nother story. But I'll say this: recognizing those investments, he's also made historic investments in black men in this country. I'm the highest ranking black man in the White House, but I focus intentionally on the issues of economy. The reality is that we have more black businesses started in this country for the first time in 30 years. Triple the amount of SBA-backed loans to the black businesses across this country. We have over $10 billion in procurement to black-owned businesses, the most ever in the history of our country. I mean, these are real investments that we're making all across this country, and we have to make sure that we understand that those issues are on the ballot. Record unemployment numbers. The first quarter of last year was the lowest recorded unemployment in the black community in the history of the country. And you think about that. So I'm not going to go on any longer, but just to say that thank you all for the work that each and every one of you does. I know there's so many stories in this room of people who do work. Your names are not in lights. You don't get the credit for the work that you do to build community, to build family. You serve God, you serve your community every single day. I want to thank you for the work that you do. I know on behalf of the president and vice president, and then on behalf of just a thankful child of God, I want to say thank you for all that you do. Thank you for allowing me. April, thank you so much for this invitation. Some of you know the difference between volunteering to do something and being voluntold to do something. You know, when April asks you to do something, you're not being asked. You're being told to do something, and you show up because of the excellence, the Black excellence that this woman represents. Bishop, thank you so much for welcoming us into your house. All right, God bless you, brother, so much.
And as we say good evening to Steve and the governor, you can take your leave, sirs. Thank you. We're going to go to our Republicans. Love you more. We're going to go to our Republicans, and everybody's not leaving. We're going to go to our Republicans, and we're going to talk about democracy and also immigration. So if we can get onto that topic, Shannon, if you want to talk about democracy and immigration, that would be great. And then we go to you, Senator, if you'd like. Yes. Okay. And we thank our guests. And you all will be getting a blue card from the White House as you leave. Please read that card. It's important. Okay, yes, Shannon.
Now you said democracy, and what was the second?
Democracy and immigration, because we talked about the immigration issue that's currently here. What do you think? And also democracy, the democracy that's challenged right now, the rule of law that we have, how things could drastically change if one candidate gets the White House over another, and how it could change not just the White House, but state by state, local governments, municipalities, it could change.
So, regardless or irregardless to who wins in November at the level of the presidency, things are going to change. It's just a matter of which things under whose leadership. So let's be clear about that. That's number one. We're in a very precarious place as a country on the global scale right now. And I would never begin to tell anyone who to vote for unless you live in Baltimore City, in which case I want your vote. But I just think that people have to make their own independent decisions about what's important to them. For me, my being a Republican was solidified when I watched, 'cause I don't read clip notes, so I watched the Democrat and the Republican National Convention. And in 2012, I believe it was, they took, by they, I mean the party other than mine, took 3 votes to be able to leave the word, not the being, but the word God in the platform. Now, for me personally, I'm not going anywhere where my God is not welcome. Now, that's me. But just as I made that decision for myself, you all have to make those decisions for you. And I pray that you make it based on the Holy Spirit and the voice that comes to you, because then your vote won't be wrong, no matter what. That's number one. Now, in terms of immigration, I understand that there is a school of thought that Republican strategy on immigration is about black and brown folk coming into the country. Well, last time I checked, I am black and brown and female. So my thoughts are not racist on this. I'm just going to say that. But one thing I was taught was you take care of home first. When the weekend came and it was time to go out and do things, your mama, your dad, your grandma, whoever asked, did you do your homework and did you do your chores? Take care of home first. Now, when we all want to go out to support these rallies that want to allow for immigration in sanctuary cities, how many homeless folk y'all step over to get there? Okay? How much resources are going to folks that are coming into this country illegally? Now understand, my family's been here only 2 generations, so I'm not against immigration, I'm against the illegal part. Okay? Now, how many of you have children that are in schools that they may graduate, they may get a diploma, but still don't know what they need to know to compete in a global marketplace? Resources could be spent there. It's not for me about immigration, about letting folk in, about the color, or any of those things. It's about we don't seem to know how to take care of home first. Let's fix juvenile justice reform. Let's make sure when our kids go to school, they're actually learning something so they feel they have options other than being on the street corner or robbing someone. Let's make sure that folks can get a job and keep a job and are qualified to compete. I'm not against immigration, but let's take care of home first. Not only, but first.
Thank you for that. Senator West?
Sure. Let me, first of all, I'm just going to sound like a Gaston Alphonse act here. The governor complimented me a while ago. Let me compliment him. He, so far, has been a terrific governor. He introduced, this past session, he introduced 14 bills, and he had them all splayed out on a conference table up in his outer office. And I went up there and took a look at them. Now, I'm a lawyer. I'm past president of the Bar Association for Baltimore City. I know how to read bills and understand what they say. So I took a look at these bills seriously, and after having read them, I signed on as co-sponsor of 12 of his 14 bills. Now, the other 2 bills we had differences on, but that's part of democracy. You know, people get elected who don't all think the same way. But the important thing is we can sit down and discuss our disagreements in a civilized fashion without using personal attacks, and we can come to compromise solutions on these bills at the end of the day. Both of the governor's 2 bills that I did not sign on were amended significantly before they got passed. Ultimately, they got passed, but there were amendments made along through the legislative process. And I'm very proud that that's how we work at Annapolis, and the governor works very effectively with the members of the General Assembly. On immigration in particular, I agree with everything he said. My biggest disappointment in the past year was the Congress came up with a good compromise bill on legislation, which both Republicans and Democrats supported, and it ultimately died because of one individual, and he unfortunately is the Republican candidate for president right now. That was a shame. And, you know, it is what it is. But because we have a democratic system, just because that bill failed this year doesn't mean it's going to fail next year. And I'm hoping it gets passed next year. Lastly, with respect to democracy, I know there's some concerns about the results of this election. Years ago, I was on the Board of Governors of the State Bar Association, and I talked to the executive director and I said, what would happen if we got a bad president? And he said, Chris, the Bar Association is president-proof. We can survive a bad president. Well, in my view, we had a bad president for 4 years, in the not-too-distant past, and we survived. If we should get another bad president again, we have something called the U.S. Constitution, which, thank heavens, protects us all, both in the language of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And we have courts which will effectuate the Constitution. I hear some people are a little unhappy, but...
Decency and order, I understand.
I have every confidence that if we had a president of the United States who tried to subvert democracy, the courts would stand in his way. I strongly believe it. If I didn't believe that, I would be acutely depressed. So with that, I think I've discussed both topics.
They have the Renaissance Center for your depression. Mr. Perry, you got a question. Hold on, wait a minute, hold on, wait a minute, hold on, Mr. Perry, hold on, Mr. Perry. I know this gentleman. My late mother used to work with him. Hold on, Mr. Perry, hold on. Here's the microphone, hold on.
Not sure I need a mic.
Yes, you do. Go ahead.
First, I disagree with you, Senator, about the courts protecting us, especially given that the courts have extended to this former president immunity that is, quite frankly, beyond the pale. Now, my question to you, though, is more than 58% of the country now supports getting rid of the Electoral College. In the last election that Donald Trump won, Hillary Clinton got the majority vote. We had a very close election. My question to you is, what is your position with regard to getting rid of the Electoral College? And then beyond that, what can we do about gerrymandering that threatens us with minority rule in so many states?
Yes, good question.
Well, let's see. First of all, the Electoral College question is easy. It's not going to pass. It would require, I think it's 3/4 of the states to vote to abolish the Electoral College, and at least half of the states are benefited from the smaller states because they get 2 extra votes representing their U.S. state senators, not just the one congressman or 2 congressmen or 3 congressmen that are allocated based on population, but they get 2 extra votes for the senators. They're going to all vote against it. So it's a nice academic conversation, but it's not going to happen. And your second question was?
Mr. Perry, we got 5 minutes. I want you to, will you be available for him after?
Yeah, after, we can talk afterwards. I'll come down, we'll talk.
Yes, please. I'm gonna make sure he does. Okay, trust me, I will.
I'll come down.
So Jewell wants to respond on immigration. Yes.
I would say on the Electoral College, if you listen to NPR Throughline's podcast episode on the Electoral College, if you aren't familiar with how we got here, that might provide good context, but I don't have time to go into it. I do want to say 2 things about immigration. When we're thinking about immigration, I think one of the foundational questions with immigration is who gets to be an American and who gets to decide that, because that ultimately should concern us if the people who are being called out and bullied by one of the presidential candidates look like us, right? We might not be Haitian, we might be Haitian here, but that is very important to consider the anti-blackness there and not just that they're immigrants. And Haiti's relationship with the United States has been complex since the Haitian Revolution, and we have to understand what it means to have a black republic in the Western Hemisphere and how predatory the United States and European powers have been towards Haiti in particular. We can't afford to fall for those ideas about our Haitian brothers and sisters. And then when we're thinking about Mexican American and people of Hispanic and Latin descent, we should consider that they originate from places that were once part of what is currently the United States was once part of Mexico. And so when we're thinking about who belongs here, who is an American, we can't alienate our people who don't maybe speak English as their first language and the assumption that they don't belong here because the United States took their land. So we have to be clear about the origins of this country and the origins of citizenship and who has been able to belong and who gets to and how that's been contested overall. We can't simply sort of fall for the narratives that are being trafficked by
That part.
parties.
That part. But also I want to, yes, that part. But also I want to add this really quick on the Haitian issue. Haitians go to that border too. But I'm going to tell you this. Haitians, they have, like you said, who gets in and who doesn't, who determines that? And when it comes to Haiti, think about this. They are allowed to seek asylum in Haiti, the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. If you've never been to Haiti, my God, there's beauty in survival. I've never seen anything like it, but let me tell you this. How are you supposed to go to seek asylum in a government house and the gangs are taking over everybody, killing everything? They killed the president there. They don't have any elections. How are you supposed to file for asylum there and then wait and then come to the United States? That's not real. That is not real. You are in duress in the country trying to find your way in life. We can talk about this forever, but I'm going to go back to the First Lady because with all of this, there's a lot of emotion here. And we got to take the emotion out, not be distracted, and look forward. First Lady, how do we do that?
I feel we should focus on the main thing. What are your goals and your core values? This is how you make your decisions. What do you value the most? And stick with that, because that will give you some level of comfort and peace about the decisions you make. Now, once you step outside of your why, your core values, and start, again, entertaining thoughts and conversations that are not in alignment with your core values, then that's when the stress comes in. That's when the doubt, the worry, the depression could come in, you know, the concerns about your future, which, of course, should motivate you in the way you choose, whether it's voting, whether it's whatever you're doing and making choices that are in your best interest. Those things help you to find peace in these tumultuous times. We also have to face the facts. What are the facts? And start doing some research with credible sources to inform us of the decisions we're making. We can't just go the YouTube ads that pop up and things on social media and assume that all of these people are credible. We have to verify who these people are, their sources, what do they know? Because I can put up a YouTube page and say all kinds of things, and you all will say, oh, Lady Carla said this, it must be true. That's not so. So just because we're popular or you know people by name recognition, don't make decisions based on that. Do some fact-checking of your own.
And I'm going to say this. Come November 5th, even if the election is not called that night, there will be someone or people, there will be a group of people who are happy with the election results, and there will be a group of people who are sad. There will be a group of people that are happy with the election results, and there will be a group of people who are sad. And I'm going to ask you, what do we do there? Because I'm telling you, when Barack Obama won, everybody was like, well, the black folks I know. And then there was a group of people who were like, oh, they were depressed. When Donald Trump won, there was a group of people that was so elated. And there was a large contingent of this nation that were depressed. How do we deal with that moment?
Well, I'm going to go back to our faith. This is when your faith kicks in, because life isn't going to always go the way you plan or expect, or the way the outcome is that you anticipate. And so this is when you trust God. You trust God before then. You trust God during the process, as we heard Sunday. And you trust that God will get you through the aftermath of whatever is going on. Because if God brought us to this point, he's going to see us through this point.
Well, I'm going to tell you guys, we have gone a half an hour over, actually 32 minutes over. Bishop gave me the okay. But I want to say I had a good time here learning and hearing. And I'm going to tell you, these unscientific polls kind of changed our opinion, because the polls are saying Pew, the Black Futures Lab, even the NAACP, the number one issue for everyone, to include black people, is the economy. And that was not your number one issue. That was not your number one issue. How many of you get polled? Okay, that's only a few. The rest of us like, huh? But that just goes to show your voice matters. Your voice matters. And before I turn it over to Pastor, I'm going to tell you how much your voice matters. There's a man who we all know from this area. He happened to be my first radio program director at Morgan State University. His name is Kwesi Mfume. Kwesi Mfume won the city council seat in Baltimore City Council seat, by not one, not two, but 3 votes. 3 votes. Not 1, not 2, but 3 votes. We would not know his name. We would not know him in Congress. We would not know him at the NAACP if he had not won that city council seat by 3 votes. Your vote matters. Your vote matters. And I'm going to go as far as saying you matter, because we, the people who are still forming a more perfect union, don't ever let people think that you're not part of the system, because you are. From that crazy perch that I sit in at the White House, when you come to those gates screaming and hollering and scratching the can up against the gate, they hear you. Don't just vote them in, make them accountable for your vote. And with that, thank you, Morning Star. I'm going to hand it over to Bishop Dwayne Debnam. Thank you, sir.
Can you help me celebrate all our panelists tonight for a job well done? Thank you all so much for your time, your information. And you can remain standing. The aim tonight was to give you information so you can make informed votes. I'll say this in closing. We hear so often how we say that the preacher will come tonight, see Pastor Carla, Solomon, others here tonight. Thank you all for sharing with us this evening also. So often we say that voting is an individual thing, and to some extent that's true. However, when you consider the 50s, the 60s, the civil rights era, the vote, when we were fighting for voter rights, our communities voted collectively what was best for the community. And it seems as though we have, for some reason, and I used this phrase earlier, I'll use it now, we've allowed our success to move us away from that. Voting in some aspects, yes, is individual, but however, on a larger scale, it's about your community. What's best for all of us, not just what's best for you as an individual. And so I encourage you, remember that we gained the voting rights because we came together. The strikes, the bus boycotts, we did those because we came together. And unless we come together and vote on what's best for us and not just what's best for me, we'll take ourselves backwards so many years. And that's what so many persons want us to do. And so as you consider how you're going to move forward, consider what's best for your child, what's best for your neighborhood, what's best for those persons who you know and you love. We've got to learn to do things collectively. We're in this season, this era where so much is built on selfishness and self-centeredness. When we are people who we gain the success that we now have because we collectively pooled our minds and our resources together. And that's what we have to get back to doing. Amen. Thank you all for coming tonight. God, thank you for allowing us this information, this moment, this dialogue, this conversation. Keep us, God, determined to honor you first. And then, God, as we honor you, we know, God, you will honor us. Thank you, God, for all who have shared. And, God, we understand this. It doth not yet appear all that you have in store for us. It's in Jesus' name we pray, and together we all say, amen. Thank you all. Don't forget the voter registration in the rear. Don't forget to stop back there also. It was something else I was supposed to say. I forgot what it was. Julie, come on. Yeah. Julian Jones is her daughter. Carl Solomon. Carl.